Yo, hello. As you may know, there's been a lot of tournaments this weekend, and we were actually able to win one of them, the NINOPOKEBROS tournament. A 211-man tournament. With this lovable little guy right here, Cetitan. Very cute cry, very cute cry. But we can just get right into talking about the team. The first thing we let's look at is this right here. You see this whole tournament, 211 participants. We ultimately were the champion on this day. You just see the Abomasnow, Cetitan, Indeedee, Armor Rogue, Hydreigon, and Annihilate core that we used to win. And most notably about this team is this right away. We're really the first ones to get big uses out of Snow as an archetype. Snow as an archetype hasn't really seen any real competitive play in these big tournaments yet. And we'll go over some of the reasons why we actually chose to use Snow on this day and chose to use this team and actually made it work. Essentially, Snow gave us a fair bit of benefits, as you may notice from like the first tournament. With Limitless, we saw like Hydreigon, Dragonite, Murkrow, Ceruledge, all these like Pokemon that are weak to the coverage that Cetitan knows. Because Cetitan actually has access to the move Liquidation, which allows it to hit all these fire types as well. You can hit like Meowscarada before it moves thanks to Slush Rush. And you kind of just have a general tempo advantage when you get into these Hydreigon Garchomp teams where you just outspeed them, get the Icicle Crash, you get the Liquidation off, and it's just like generally pretty valuable into those kind of archetypes. So that kind of made me want to instantly kind of look at Snow a bit harder. Because like, oh, like all these teams are running a lot of dragons, they're running a lot of Pokemon that are generally weak to like the offensive capabilities of Ice-type Pokemon. So that kind of opened the door to actually like trying it. And not to mention one of the key things about how Murkrow teams work. They want to outspeed you, and if they're not able to take advantage of their tailwind to its fullest, which is another important part of how my team gives a potential advantage. Because we can Slush Rush, and then we have our own tailwind, and we can become faster than any of the Murkrow tailwind Pokemon. Because these teams don't typically have like any Choice Scarf users. Like they have generally kind of fast Pokemon, like the Hydreigon's kind of fast, the Gengar is very fast. But those Pokemon aren't really like going to outspeed a Pokemon with Slush Rush or anything. And since they don't use any like Scarfers or anything, you're able to kind of take advantage of them for that. And this kind of like have a decent output against them and this make work of their team in that fashion. And that's kind of why we decided to use Snow. And ultimately like the team as well, you can see here, this is the actual pace of the team. We have all these options to this hit fast. Like we have the Tailwind mode with Hydreigon. We have the Trick Room mode with Armor Rogue. Like we're generally going to have some kind of option to make our Pokemon faster than you. Or control tempo to a board position we like. Because a lot of my Pokemon on this team, they all have like relatively low speed stats that aren't quite the highest, or they're like full invested as well here with Hydreigon. Like in general, these speed stats are so like middling to the point that we can always take advantage of some kind of our speed control, whether that be Trick Room to counter Tailwind or Tailwind to this like match it as well, and then having the Snow of Slush Rush to take advantage in that sense as well, which is one of the more like interesting components to how this team plays. You always have some kind of layer that allows you to just really accomplish something. And first of all, with this right away though, when it came to like this building this team, the one problem of how like Snow tends to work in like a Snow core, you're stacking a lot of weaknesses. Like you have two ice types, you're stacking weaknesses to fighting types, you're stacking weaknesses to fire types, stacking weaknesses to rock, steel, you're stacking all of these weaknesses. And that's one of the bigger flaws to how Snow kind of operates as a team. Is you're always going to just have these like weaknesses that are this like correlating together, and that kind of creates some problems for you in team building. So initially the first idea of how I could like kind of fix the specifically the fighting type issue, I thought, okay, we're weak to fighting, we're weak to fire, we're weak to steel. What's a Pokemon that deals with all of those? Armor Rogue. So instantly we just straight up went to the Armor Rogue mode and the start of approach Psy Spam, because like, okay, if we're weak to all these typings, just having Armor Rogue here as like the buffer, and then inherently we kind of went to Ndidi as well to kind of double up and to make sure the fighting weakness is a lot more mitigated thanks to expanding force, thanks to psychic terrain, and then scare off all the fighting types that generally could be very scary for our snow mode, and also makes make Torkoal teams have to rethink what they're doing because they have to deal with a potential flash fire boost going onto an armor rogue, and a sun boosted armor cannon is very scary as a counter option as well. So that gave us like a lot of options into how like teams would normally want to play against snow. With us having this Ndidi armor rogue core being really the perfect kind of partner to it. And then from there I was like, okay, as I was saying about Murkrow teams, they tailwind and they die. But the best, if we have some form of counter tailwind, like let's say if I lead like Hydreigon, Cetitan into their like Murkrow and like Breloom or something, and if we get a counter tailwind off, then our Cetitan for the rest of the game in snow will be faster than like anything they could possibly bring into us. So it would always theoretically be at the advantage in that state. And also Hydreigon helps us with the other part of the problem, being Golden Go. Which Golden Go is Steel Ghost type, very powerful. So this is having the Dark Pulse for that, having the Tailwind for that as well. So we have the speed advantage with our Pokemon. Having Armor Rogue is another option to deal with Golden Go too. And having the Wide Guard on Armor Rogue to deal with Golden Go. Kind of this give us a very wide flexibility of how we can play this team. And kind of gives us enough counter modes where we always should have an option. And this becomes how we find the option in that matchup. And then for the final Pokemon, this was more like, this was originally actually a Choice Scarf Final Gambit Annihilate. But I came to the realization, actually, when I faced a different player using Bulk Up Annihilate on their own, I realized there's another problem with how my snow team operates. Because our main way of beating a fighting type, right, is through expanding force in our psychic types, what happens if a mon like Annihilate in screens terastalizes to like a fire typing, or it terastalizes into a water typing? And the answer was I really didn't have a good way to deal with opposing Annihilates that were bulk up as well. So the plan instead became, I also have the ability to take advantage of a Aurora Veil, so I also have screens. So theoretically, Bulk Up Annihilate works perfectly fine with how this team runs as well. And that allowed me a lot of like layering options and kind of came to our favor a bit as well. Because we're able to just set up Bulk Up and go screens and go that route into the opposing Annihilate screen teams. And I ultimately chose to be like a faster Annihilate, so we would have the general Bulk Up speed advantage and would also outspeed like Breloom, which is another annoying fighting type. Because theoretically, if you're able to bulk up first against an opposing Annihilate where they only have like 50 base power, you're able to spam bulk up, bulk up, bulk up, bulk up. And they'll eventually just have to hit you with a less of a boost. Because like theoretically, you could go slower so you can Rage Fist and have the counter Rage Fist. But I decided quickly that was like probably a little bit better to have the faster bulk up for the concept of this team. Because then we're able to defense boost first, and they have to like respond into us, and we always quick bulk up. The only theoretically worrying part of that is if you go to like +6/+6, right, and they get the crit first, then it becomes a bit worrying. But overall, I think having the bulk up here and going this kind of speed stat gave me like enough of an option to beat opposing Annihilate that it was worth doing if the expanding force mode and all that couldn't actually work out. And also creating my own kind of alternate win condition with bulk up was nice too. Though theoretically you could probably go slower if you don't like care about the value of Breloom and go like more Spadef and kind of play a bulkier Annihilate. Ultimately this was what we decided to do before the tournament. And yeah, this is the general kind of like idea of how the team did and how the team plays. We can go over some of our matchups and how we actually got here, because this tournament was a best of one tournament with open team sheets. So every round we would like kind of have this new opponent. And that kind of makes it a bit interesting, right? It kind of makes it a bit interesting. We get this. And these are kind of my matchups on the top cut day. We won against Lux. I started off the tournament, honestly, like pretty poorly. We started like 2-2 and then we bounced back and this won every game after. And eventually we got top cut where we actually started to like do pretty well. Cause I noticed like there's a few problems with how I played in Switch Day 1 where I was still not like used to how open sheets work. So for example, in this game, I completely forgot that Skeletor's had unaware. So I spent the early game just bulking up with Annihilate, and it just kind of backfired. And I forgot about, actually no, the thing I forgot about was the Citrus Berry. I assumed it was leftovers, and I went for like this Rage Fist, read the Terra Fairy on the Skeletor, and go for Terra Blast on it to KO. And then I just didn't remember it had Citrus Berry, and then it just failed to KO, and it was pretty bad. But yeah, you can see some of the like VODs we have on the tournament as well. Some of like the matches we had is here, because we played this. Got a win here. Let's look at some of the teams we played. Like we played a lot of like interesting teams throughout day 1. We actually played a Hail Mirror early on too. Funny enough, though I think our snow team was generally a bit more solid overall. But yeah, that's like the general idea of the matchups we played, and we ultimately get through top cut as well. If you want to see the tournament VOD and all the stuff we have there, it will also be a link in the description. It is on my like VOD channel, so you'll be able to actually see like some of how the team played and all that, and just get like more practical examples. But yeah, that's like the general idea of how that works. And then for like leads, this for how we like to lead with this team. You can lead like Abomasnow Cetitan. You can lead like Cetitan Hydreigon, go Tailwind plus Cetitan, and you can also switch out Hydreigon into Abomasnow to get the snow up. Because this is something I actually did a fair bit into like teams with Mousehold and teams with like Meowscarada and the likes. I would actually lead Cetitan and like Hydreigon, and then like switch out my Hydreigon instantly into Snow, or go for like Tailwind and like some kind of offensive option. So I like always throw in this like outspeed option, and I always throw in like a potential Tailwind that they kind of have to respect, and I throw in like moves like Draco Meteor too. So that was always an option I liked doing. There's also this like straight up Indeedee Armor Rogue, which is something I did a fair bit, because like if any matchup didn't have like a way to deal with me in Trick Room, I could just lead Indeedee, just quick follow me, go Trick Room, and then start spamming Blizzard plus Expanding Force for game. And that's something I actually like doing a fair bit into like specifically like Tailwind matchups when I know the team doesn't have a way to deal with me in Trick Room. I'll just always go like Indeedee Armor Rogue Abomasnow, set up the Trick Room, go for Blizzards, and go for game that way. And then we'd have like Cetitan in the back as like a kind of snow mode, and a fast option for once we get actually outside of Trick Room. Because that was another benefit of Cetitan. It both works in and out of Trick Room thanks to its only like 98 speed. So we were able to like layer Abomasnow, go for Snow in the end game, and then Cetitan with this outspeed every mon on my opponent's team and kind of clean up it once my Trick Room actually ends. And that was like a good option as well. And then we also had, there are some games I would go like Armor Rogue Hydreigon, where I would like threaten a Trick Room and threaten a Tailwind potentially, and take advantage of how like we could layer stuff. There's also like Annihilate Abomasnow, where I'll just straight up play, go for Orville turn 1, and then just start spamming bulk ups and going for win condition. There's also like Hydreigon and Indeedee as kind of like a supportive mode, just to guarantee Tailwind. Like there's just a lot of options that we could kind of layer with how this team played, and that kind of like made it generally pretty good, and this overall this is a solid team and how we could just layer our options. And now we can get to like another topic point, and that's just our EV spreads. First of all, with Abomasnow, the EV spread is just designed to, it's designed very simply. Essentially we're reaching 180 speed in Tailwind, which means Abomasnow and Tailwind will outspeed Palmut, Gengar, but more specifically this Mousehold, because Mousehold reaches 179. So in Tailwind, our Abomasnow always outspeeds Mousehold, and that was what the speed EVs were intended to do. Because essentially this like, it's this 90 speed, we just dumped in special attack, dumped in HP, 4-4. I think theoretically something you could do to change the spread around a bit. You could also go like Light Koi on this as well, but before the tournament we were just like rushing a bit, so we just decided to go Sash for this reliability. But there's another thing you can do with the spread, because Snow actually gives you a 2x defense boost with ice types now. You could actually invest more into defense and you'll get a better gain, which is something that you could do. But ultimately we did this end up HP dumping, for this Abomasnow. And then we get to Cetitan. This is one of the more interesting spreads. As you can see, we have 4 HP. Generally, with any time you see a base number this high, of like 170 and higher and stuff like that, you don't actually need to invest in it to get value. And you're better off investing in these lower stats, as we invested a lot into our Spadef. And this is another spread where you could theoretically just go lower on attack, go more into defense for more higher value in general. But we decided to focus on like one specific calc, and that is the ability to with choice specs make it rain. Golden Go choice specs make it rain is like the strongest steel type attack in the metagame. And thanks to our EV spread of this 4 HP 204 Spadef, our Cetitan can actually live that. And that really gives us a general... It was just a fun little option to this, like, potentially not even have to terastalize into Hydreigon and Golden Go, and let's go for a crash on their Hydreigon or superpower, and then still live the attack anyways. That was, like, something I found pretty funny to just have, even though it wasn't really the most, like, used option, and generally with this, like, terastal in the water anyways. Because you notice, once you actually terastal in the water, Golden Go does no damage. Like, 5 at KO, 0% option. It's just like not doing any damage. And like Shadow Ball does even like 3 at KO too with choice specs. And even with like Life Orb +2 Nasty Plot, it's still not going to be able to actually KO you. And that's like this pretty valuable in general. This how well our Cetitan is able to tank these attacks and get some like general value out into it was pretty important. Ultimately, we are 252 attack, and that 252 attack was because I realized like when I calced a lot of stuff that we were like kind of close on a lot of these KOs, right? With superpower did that, and then you go like Hydreigon, we don't even kill. We kill Hydreigon at adamant, but it's like a bit close. It's a bit close of a roll, so we ended up deciding to go like 252 attack as well. Icicle Crash would KO as well, but this for the option of covering for like Terra Steel type on Hydreigon. You kind of want the quick superpower sometimes instead of like Icicle Crash. Even though Icicle Crash has a better chance at KOing. And that's like one unfortunate thing about Cetitan. It just barely doesn't quite do enough damage. So I did decide to just go 252 instead of like focusing too much on the defense bulk. And instead relying on my Abomasnow and the Snow to create defense bulk for my Cetitan. Which is something you can argue like could be a bit more optimal a different way, but I think because of like the damage output this being slightly not enough, I think this having the 252 attack is actually like relatively important to give you the best chance of getting these KOs as possible. And that was like kind of helpful. The DD is very simple where this HP defense dump. Though the most notable thing is we decided to be Dazzling Gleam instead of going like Psychic on DD, and that's just because if I'm leading Armorogan in DD, I want to at least have some offensive option to quick into Hydreigon. Even if the Dazzle itself won't KO Hydreigon because we're 0 investment, just having that extra potential damage into a Hydreigon was like something I found like generally pretty useful. And even though we didn't ultimately use this Terra type, having Terra Fairy was like another thing that was pretty cool. Because theoretically, if someone reads like Meowscarada plus Mouse Hold into my Indeedee Armorogue mode, we could Terra Fairy, live the knockoff from the Meowscarada, go down to like the Mousehold population bomb, and then always get up our Trick Room. And that was why Terra Fairy was the type we chose. It's not because of the synergy, because obviously we're very steel weak in general, but this having the ability to this terastalize against a dark type, live, and then the suicide for a Trick Room with Armorogue was something of a reason why I thought Fairy was like the better defensive type for us. I think even though we didn't, oh actually we did use it in like one tournament game, but it was never like the most impactful directly. That's another option that we always had to use, and another option we always had to potentially take advantage of, though ultimately we like didn't choose to. And you'll notice another thing about this set as well is we actually do not have Trick Room. And this is something that is a little more personal, I guess. I actually don't really feel like Trick Room is going to end up being legal. So I kind of feel like there's a bit of a like, do I really want to use a move that I personally don't think deserves to be legalized? If you don't know, Trick Room in DD is a set you can only get from raid battles, and there's actually like a Trick Room TM, and then DD can't learn the Trick Room TM, it can only learn it through like raid battles. So I kind of feel like this was an oversight by Pokemon and Game Freak, and I don't want to use Trick Room on Indeedee until we actually get to a point where it's like recognized by the Pokemon and they say, hey guys, you can use Trick Room. Then I'll actually consider using that move. But otherwise, no, I don't want to use it in general. But I think even with Trick Room existing, I still feel like this having Dazzle, Follow Me, Helping Hand, Protect was pretty optimal for us. Because what I went over with how Cetitan, this barely misses out these confirmed KOs, right? Having Helping Hand allows Cetitan to actually get those confirmed KOs 100% of the time. It allows all these confirmed KOs from my other Pokemon. So I think Helping Hand was still the correct move over Trick Room. And then actually having the value to Quick Protect to preserve my redirection, I feel like was also more valuable than Trick Room. So there's a bit layered of this me not thinking Trick Room is actually something that's going to be legalized in the future when they actually decide to respond on it. And also this me not thinking that Trick Room is really like actually good on this kind of Indeedee set, and instead Helping Hand gives me like more general value. So there's a bit of a layering to why we ultimately didn't decide to go like Trick Room on Indeedee. And also I did kind of breed a 0 IV and attack Indeedee myself. So going for a 0 IV attack Trick Room raid Indeedee sounded like a pain, and I didn't want to do it after already getting a 0 IV Indeedee. So we ultimately didn't decide to. And also I wanted this team to be legal for like Liberty Note competitions, and that's a Japanese circuit. Or Trick Room Indeedee is also this kind of band. So that was just another part in my thought process as well. If you want to use Trick Room Indeedee on this team, go ahead, build the team yourself. I'm not going to help you or stop you or anything. I just don't think it's like something that you should be using in the current state. And then to our Armorogue. This set is very simple. The most important thing to talk about here is we chose to be Terra Dark instead of Terra Grass, right? And why we just chose to be Terra Dark is simply because of Hydreigon. Because there was this kind of mode, and that's why I was talking about like the Limitless tournament from the week before, right? There was this mode where they essentially had they had Choice Spec Snarl Hydreigon, and they had Life Orb Golden Go with Make It Rain. And even if you Terra into the Grass type with your Armorogue, you're still going to die to a Choice Spec Snarl, and you're going to die to that Life Orb Make It Rain. That combination will always KO you. And that kind of like spooked me out a little bit. Like, I don't want to be forced to quick Wide Guard every turn with my Armorogue into that matchup. That, like, while that is helpful and good and all, being forced into it, I don't exactly like. So I ultimately decided to be Terra-type Dark. We're also considering Terra-type Fighting, because there was a certain point where I had Aura Spear on this Armorogue. That's because it's another way to actually just hit a Hydreigon. You can hit like all these steel types that are popping around too. You can hit King Gambit. You can hit like all those Pokemon, right? So it was like a very potentially valuable option. But considering how like often you can get into like spread attacks, you can get into like Torkoals with eruptions, you can get into Garchomp spamming Rock Slide and EQs. White Card was ultimately the better option for us. So we decided to go Dark for the extra benefit. You block Taunt potentially from like Prankster Mons. You can block Spore with Safety Goggles as well. So we decided to ultimately go Dark instead of like Fighting. Though both were potential options that we were looking into a fair bit. And yeah, the general set is very self-explanatory. Wide Guard blocks all these spread attacks. Trick Room to actually be our Trick Room setter. Armor Cannon is this Fire type CC. Very, very strong move. Expanding Force plus Indeedee is this brokenly powerful. And then with the spread, it's very simple. I actually believe the speed stat doesn't actually go to Kilowattrel speed. Because you'll notice with like our Cetitan with 98 speed, this outspeeds Kilowattrel. But we ended up going 97, which 97 is just going to get you like right above Meowscarada, which is another of this like really powerful Pokemon in Tailwind, right? So we just decided like 192 and then 97 you get 194. Ultimately you do have to go 97 because like how this multiplication works, you can't go to like 193 in Tailwind. Because there is no 0.5 stats, but you know. So yeah, we're just faster in Tailwind than Meowscarada, which in turn means we're faster than like Mousehold and stuff too. So that was just like another way we can take advantage of that team. You could theoretically like drop just a bit of this if you wanted to have the outspeed on Kilowattrel as well. I decided it wasn't really like necessary, and I had already EV'd like Cetitan for 98 too. Because if I EV'd arm, I don't really like having the speed stats be the same. So if I went Armor Rogue to like 1 more point, so we outspeed Kilowattrel, I would also make my Cetitan 1 point faster. So we don't have the same speeds, and I'm always like sure of what outspeeds. Or I would alternatively make my Armor Rogue 99. And then we go to like Hydreigon. The Hydreigon spread's just very simple. It's this 2v2, 2v2 Life Orb. And we just have Draco, Dark Pulse, Terra Blast, Tailwind. And we have the Terra type Poison. And why we chose Poison is Poison's actually a fighting resist, which I think is very important. Because we are already talking about how this team is like generally pretty weak to fighting types. So this having a alternative where Hydreigon still beats the fairy types, it still like deals with a lot of stuff, has great coverage around with Terra Blast too, can hit grass type Pokemon that try to Terra type that way too. Like for example, at Skeletors, Terra types in the grass or fairy, we're always going to hit it super effectively with a poison type Terra Blast. And that actually came into benefit versus like Joe UX9, and then versus Rishi where he had like fairy on their Skeletor, having the poison that's hitting both was pretty valuable. But yeah, this is a very simple spread. This is 2v2, 2v2. We set Tailwind. Yeah, the good coverage, and that was really all to talk about there. And then for the Nihilape, it was this, there isn't actually too much work into this spread, honestly. I talked about it earlier, but this is the Breloom speed stat. And it's just being faster than opposing Nihilape, so I can, like, kind of have a matchup and just quick my bulk ups before they can. And then, like, this 60 attack, 236. You can go slower on this, and this generally bulkier, too. There's no issue with that, right? There's no issue with that. This is a generally like pretty strong spread. And always like operates as a win condition plus Aura Veil. And this is another mode to the team. We have Lumberry water type. We chose not to be fire type because like this realistically we're stacking so many weaknesses by going fire. So I thought water would just always have like the general better defensive synergy with our team. Which fire is still a good option here, of course, too. Because we do have a lot of water type Terras. So going to like fire so you can like be immune to burn. Going like fire so you have like all this like extra security with you is just pretty good too. And now this to talk about potential changes real quick. This is an item usage. Like I already talked about, you can add more defense into the Abomasnow and the snow types. But you can also do stuff like this, right? You can go light clay on the Abomasnow, go sash on Indeedee, and actually go like Psychic Seed on Nihilape is a potential option too. You can go like Terra Fire. Like with this team, there's like so many options. You can drop the speed, go like more bulk. Like there's so many options that you can, with how you can play this team. That's just always something you can do. You can also go like Colbur Berry on Indeedee, so you live a dark attack, and then you can like Sash Hydreigon if you don't want to play the speed ties. Like there's so many this decent enough options with how you could potentially play this team that there's like always something you can do with it, right? And I think that's like all we really have to talk about with the team in general right now. We'll just go ahead and reveal the rental code, right? Okay, I imagine that's like what a lot of you guys have been waiting for through this whole talk, this whole video, you know? Just trying to get to actually be able to use the team yourself. We're going to go ahead and just make a rental code right now, actually. It's live in the recording, right? Which if there's any other like details you want me to talk about with this team, you can like leave a comment and I'll reply to it. Or this messages me in like our Discord too. That will work as well. Yeah, let's wrap it up. You just get the rental right now. Which if you like this kind of content, right? Leave a subscribe. Not many of you guys are subscribed yet. Help the channel. Help the channel. Please. Please. I beg. I beg. But yeah. Let's right to it. Shared to you. And it's here now. The rental is now up to end the video. Oh. It's here. It's here. The rental code. Oh god, if you don't know, there's a bug with how sharing rentals work. It will always display the team in Team 1, and my team is a team with the duck, the water duck. So it's called Dance Duck now. Kind of crazy. Hydreigon's basically a duck if you think about it, so maybe it works. Hydreigon's basically a duck if you ask me. But yeah, that's the team, that's the rental code. If you want this kind of team, you want to use this on yourself, go ahead. And yeah, again, click that button, click the subscribe, click the likes, leave comments, help the algorithm make our channel more powerful. And in general, that's really the whole idea. Thank you for watching. If you all that later.